person who created us rested. Why wouldn't you rest as a person? At the end of the day, a person who is not resting is likely to cause more problems. Rules are to serve you, you don't serve rules. Ooh, you see.
Welcome to TDV, your space for real conversations, bold perspectives, and lasting impact. My name is Ola, and I've got here with me
Doris.
And this is our new episode. On today's episode of the Determined Voices podcast, we're going to be exploring a topic that I think it's really dear to my heart. And I've just been learning it recently, and I'm excited to hear what Doris has to say about this topic. And the topic is the lie that rest is laziness. I don't know who told us that resting means that you're lazy, but I think we get to really unpack, the idea of rest and where some of these ideologies came from, aren't we? Okay. So we are going to start lighthearted. Yeah. And I think I'm going to ask you, Doris, so how do you know when you're tired?
I laugh because I just know. I'm not sure. Yes, I do. Okay, let's get a bit more serious. Guys. How do I know when I'm tired? When I'm tired, my lower back, I start to feel pain around my lower back, especially if I'm standing. When I'm also tired, I start to feel a lot more colder. I just feel chills. Yeah. So physiologically, that's how I know, or physically, that's how I know. And also, I'm very self-aware. Like I mentioned before, that people who've interacted with me would say I'm very versatile. Back in the days, some people used to call me Duracell battery. Like I never ever stop. Yes, interestingly.
Duracell.
Yes, Duracell. So, but now they're also noticing that
maybe she does stop.
Yeah, I can see the difference. Yeah, it is because I'm understanding that I need rest. I need to factor that in. I am understanding that the demand is constant. The demand for my time, for my resources, for my availability is constant, is non-stop. And so I have intentionally given myself permission to rest.
Okay, that's good. I think it sounded very serious, and you've kind of just taken it deep, like you give yourself permission to rest. How do I know when I'm tired? First things first, everyone just goes a bit blurry. I start to have to rethink and remind myself what I was doing, what the task was, what it was. I'm really slow at processing. And I also start to get very irritable, like leave me alone. I become like
snappy.
When I'm like that, because I just want to go home. But okay. Permission to rest. I think we should start from there. Why do you think people, especially young people, struggle to actually rest?
The issue that they're often dealing with is a very fast-paced world. It's one of the issues they're dealing with. Everything is so fast-paced nowadays. The expectation is that you have to keep going, isn't it? Whether you are working as a young adult, whether you are studying as a young adult, the expectation is just to keep going. And it appears that people have very defined timelines for things. So for example, you finish uni, they're expecting you to get a job. So anywhere you go, everybody's asking the question, have you got a job yet? Have you got a job yet? When you get that job, move to the next thing. The next timeline is, when are you going to get married? Everywhere they see you at they see you at a wedding. They see you at a wedding. They see you in an event. They see you in chat. They're sort of very clear. And then when you get married, after a couple of years, when are we gonna have children? Yeah. So it's this very regimented, this very performance-driven society we're in. Yes, it's all about performance. It's all about achievements, that people are struggling to actually think that rest is now become something that is associated, like you said, with being lazy. You're not working hard enough. Rest, what's that like?
Interesting. And I think just going off the back of that, thinking about young adults, I know the world is very different. You're not that old, but the world is very different from when you were a young adult compared to what it is now. What would you say your relationship with rest was like when you were younger?
it was pretty much defined by the adults around me. I did not have a definition of rest. You come back from, let me say, okay, I went to primary school. I came back from primary school. As soon as you get home, plates are waiting for you to wash. As soon as you finish washing plates, please go and carry water. As soon, so there was no rest. There was no, these are things that I've begun to learn for myself, how to put them in place, you see, because your belief systems, I think I touched on this before, they shape your rules for living. The bottom lines you have, the things that, for example, for some people, for us, most, certainly from my culture, I'm an African from Cameroon. And most of the times when I was small, while I was younger, the culture is that, hard work leads to success. Or education is the only way. And they drill that into you. I was very athletic while I was growing up. And if my mom was a little bit open-minded, I would have probably pursued a career in athletics. But no, it was all about education, you see. And that becomes the way that I live my life. When I came to the UK, it was all about pursuit. You have to keep going because that's the only way, I've been told. It's much later now, in my late 20s and early 30s, that I began to form my own. Who am I? I began to, I think when I first of all did the Masters in Forensic Mental Health, that is when I started to put some perspectives, rewriting. I did a lot of rewriting of my bottom lines. I did a lot of rewriting of some of those belief systems that I'm not the one, I won't follow tradition. I don't know why are they there? So there's been a lot of rewriting that's taken place over the years. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're getting somewhere. We've talked about your relationship with rest and how it was actually defined, by people around you, by the adults around you. And it wasn't until much later you started to rewrite that definition. So what actually is rest? From your perspective, both as an individual, but also as a very well-learned person in this area, how would you define rest?
I mean, I don't think there is a global definition for it. That will be, you can say that's definitely for a fact, that's the definition of rest. I feel rest means different things to different people in my experience.
Okay.
Rest will include something that makes you slow down. For me personally, rest will be me just sitting in my living room and watching a movie. I don't necessarily need to go to a bed to sleep for me to rest, you see. For me, rest will be the time that I socialize with my friends. Meaningful socialization, that is rest. Rest for me as well, it's when sometimes I'm not doing my standard job, I'm doing what I enjoy doing. Now that is very contradictory because some people feel rest is actually meaning I need to pause and take some time. For me, rest means different things at different times, you see. So I could still be doing something, but for me, I'm resting because the amount of aptitude required for that task is not the same like the task that I was doing that was very demanding for me. Yeah, so rest for me sometimes just moves me from one level of that requires so much concentration, intensity, to a low stimulus activity. And for me, at that point, although I'm still doing something, I consider that rest because I've stepped from one level of high intensity, I'm at a low level. So I would say rest means different things to different people.
I think I have to agree with that because when you mentioned that rest for you means socializing, I think my life just kind of flashed when I was like, absolutely no way. If I'm socializing with friends, that's not rest. That's taking energy out of me. So yeah, and I agree that rest can mean different things to different people.
Yes.
But I suppose it's about, like you said, slowing down. It's about changing the pace,
Yes.
isn't it?
Very much so.
Sometimes rest would include activities,
Yes.
self-care activities.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean just stopping everything
Yes.
and
going to sleep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sometimes that's needed.
Yes.
That is needed.
I mean, if that's what you call rest. I was just more or less of the stereotype that people think rest actually means stop. There's a clear stop and then a clear start again.
Okay.
Yes.
So I suppose I want to ask a question. There is something that I've been learning, how rest is not, like you said, rest is not stopping. It's a heart posture.
Yeah.
What would you say to that?
And I think when they talk about the heart posture, I mean, certainly I've not done a teaching around rest being a heart posture, but my understanding generally of rest is that when somebody's talking about rest, it has to do with it. It's from the inside. So rest is something that comes from within. It's a state of mind, isn't it? It's not the physical things that someone see. You can sit amongst people and you say, well, I'm actually resting, you guys, because it's your heart. It's your heart in a place that you're not engaged in so many different things. You're not thinking so many things. It's your heart posture. So for me, when we talk about heart posture and associating that with rest, it's about that inner, what is your attitude towards rest?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's from within, you see. How are you listening to your body? Rest is not so much of some drama that you put up for people. Rest is about you, and you define what it is. That's why I started off by saying I don't subscribe to a global definition of rest, because rest will mean different things for different people. So the heart posture is about, my understanding is your attitude towards this. Yes.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that. Just because people have to, when you think about the word rest, or when we say to somebody you need to rest, you have to think about how do you respond to the idea of rest. Do you love it? Do you struggle with it? Do you feel guilty when you rest? That's the heart posture. And off the back of that as well, do you think that there could be times where somebody, or maybe if you've experienced that before, where you're doing restful activities, for example, you're having a spa day, because there's a whole self-care industry now, isn't it, where the idea of rest is you're in a spa, someone's doing your nails, you're getting a massage, and all of that's good. But do you think that you could be doing all of these things, or maybe even laying in bed or watching a movie, like you said, but your heart is not truly at rest? So how would you say that person, and they're doing something restful technically, but their heart is all over the place? Is that still rest?
And that's why I said it's going to be different. I don't know that I have an answer for that, because it's going to be different for everybody. But my understanding, if I say I am resting, it means I do my best to switch off. Yes.
Switching off.
I do my best to switch off, which means I try and be present in that activity that I'm doing. It's about being present. I don't carry other presence with me. So if I'm going for a spa, I try to be present, maximizing the spa, asking the lady question. And sometimes you have to, well, not sometimes, all the times you have to intentionally rest. Yes, it's an intentional act, because like I said, there's so many competing demands, especially, sometimes in ministry. Some people think pastors need to be available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Why are they resting? If I call my pastor, I didn't get my pastor. I called my leader, I didn't get my leader. I called my mentor, I didn't get my mentor. And it's such a big thing. And that's where the heart posture again comes in. What is the attitude towards this? You need to feel okay that the world is going to continue even after you've gone. You see, recently, a man of God at a service of song made a statement that I think one of the Nollywood people died, and Pastor Jerry Eze said, do you know that when the day he died, people still ate? Even the people who were close to him ate. Now that is a very good way of putting things, that the world don't stop when you stop. And I said earlier that if you don't factor in rest, something will put rest in place for you. And it's sad if your health has to put rest, because you never know. Some people don't come back from it. They're very, there's a causal link between having rest and your health. I mean, you're a health coach. What would you say?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. There's something that I tend to talk to my clients a lot about, and it's about the idea of pacing and what pacing actually is. What a lot of people tend to do is what we call the boom and bust.
Yes.
Where you go and you go a lot and then you crash.
Yes.
And then from that crashing point, you go again and then you crash.
Yeah.
And over time, what happens is you have this zigzaggy, erratic way of living that's just not sustainable. Whereas pacing is, you actually, like you said, factor in periods of rest. You learn to break things down. You put time to things, and making sure that rest is actually a part of your day, not something that you
just stumble into it.
Yes.
You know,
not something that comes.
You sit on the chair and you slump. And that that's the only time you rest, and that is not you being intentional.
Because a lot of people don't stop, like you said, until something stops them. And we say there's a lot for people who have, I don't know if you know about the health condition fibromyalgia. The hallmark of fibromyalgia is you're constantly in pain. But like you said, the world doesn't stop, so you still have to move, you still have to do something. So what happens is when these people have a day where they're feeling a bit better, they're cramming, cleaning the house, going shopping, all of that. And that means they have to spend the next 3 to 4 days recovering.
Fatigue.
And by the time they finish recovering, it's time to do something else again. So what we try to do is to live a life that is so intentional that you know that your mind knows that at this time, we're going to be taking a break. At this time, we're going to be resting and just listening and working in partnership with your own body. And I think that's what it is. And I think this leads me nicely to the next question, though. Do you think rest has to be earned?
I'm not sure it's about being earned. I think it's about we all deserve to rest.
But that's the thing, though. So what sets I'm thinking of a way to phrase this question properly. So when you say we all deserve to rest, who determines that deserve?
When God created, when in creation, if you go back to creation, you realize that after he finished creation, he rested. You see, and that is our understanding of the way that the person who created us rested. Why wouldn't you rest as a person? You see, and I think is this notion again of the things that people have been told over and over. What is defining how people live their lives? People live lives not understanding. You see, so I'm not sure that the appropriate term I will use is that you've earned to rest. Like nobody should, who is awarding, who is saying, these, you need to understand that. And that's your self-awareness. That's when you know that you've reached a threshold. That's when you know, like you said, you start to feel irritated. Of what use are you to the people around you when you start to feel irritated?
Good question.
You see, at the end of the day, a person who is not resting is likely to cause more problems.
That's true.
You are likely to do yourself and other people around you a disservice.
That's true.
If you don't rest. Now, as a mental health professional, I'm big on empowering people to rest and take a break, because there are a lot of things that can go wrong. Even when we talk about just resting as a state of sleeping, the absence of sleep causes a lot of physiological issues, you see. So it's really, rest is such a treasure that we have been given, because the person that we are following is God, and his example is that he rested on the 7th day.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
And if that is the the benchmark that we're looking at, we must make effort as young people, regardless of what it is, to rest, and embrace that culture. It may be difficult because you're stepping out of a culture that maybe your family has promoted, a culture that your environment has promoted. Certainly, it's a culture that is promoted within the church environment. As a leader in church, we keep going. There's always somebody to help. There's always somebody to support. There's always, we have programs and things like that. We certainly have to step back and understand that actually, I can't go any further. And you have the power. Rules are to serve you. You don't serve rules.
Ooh,
you see, your person, they're there for you. Your rules, you make them. They are to serve you. You don't serve them. So if you get to a point, you should be able to tell someone that, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to carry on in that flow, because with the younger generation, they're very open. They're very confrontational. I don't know if that's even the right word, but many young people are no longer afraid to say their mind. So, for example, back in the day, at least from looking at my parents and my aunties and uncles and all them lot, there was a culture of, a sign of dedication to your workplace was that after 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, you had to carry the work home and doing the work. Your manager could pick a phone call. I'll call you at 10 o'clock and then you have to pick the call, or you will be seen as you're disloyal, or you're not committed, or you're not working as part of a team and things like that. But when the young people start to speak up against things like that, they're labeled all kinds of things.
Yes.
I think you're in a very good in between of that, because you've seen, you would agree that you've just said we have to have boundaries. You have to be able to say no.
Yeah.
But then you don't want to be labeled as someone that's not cooperative, because you're saying that your rest time is personal to you and it's important to you.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that kind of environment? And I know I've only just used the workplace example. Like you said, it happens in families as well.
Yeah.
Where you're like, Mommy, I think I just need to sleep. And it's like, no, you need to get downstairs and watch
the fights
and do that stuff and things. How do you navigate just that difference in generational idea that rest is actually important and it's not just it's not optional?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I think like everything that you want to introduce, every change in season, every change in generational paradigms and shifts, it takes time. It takes time. And the watchword here is consistency. Be consistent about your boundaries. You see?
Be consistent.
Yes,
about
you
your
have
boundaries.
to be consistent. Are people going to protest? Yes. Like every new idea you introduce, like every new system you want to, you bought a phone and you're switching from being an Android user to an iPhone user. Consistent. As you keep using your iPhone, you get familiar. So it's the same thing with, if you're an adult, for example, young adult, if you're living at home with parents, there are some fundamentals living in a home environment. What are your expectations? Your expectation is that the task at home, you support your parents to do one or two things, but also within that home, you're also an adult. And therefore, when you come back home, you talk it out with parents. It's important to express. The word is expression. You need to communicate. You see where you stand with things, where things are. And I believe that any understanding parent, if their child left home, a young adult, 18, went to uni, coming back at 23, there is some earned respect. You need to respect that adult, that although they're at home, they're not that person that left at 18. So these are transitions that take place. And I would not say push back in any way that is rude. I would say be consistent in saying, please, if you have any task for me to do, now will be a good time to give it to me, because I am going to visit a friend at 5 o'clock. I will not be home. So be proactive, be proactive, because you know that your parents, you don't want to be disobedient. You want to also support where possible. So you can be proactive in asking. You can have a planner for the house. Can everybody put their task there? so that we all know what we're doing, you know? And these are the things that help you in that adjustment, in that making sure that your boundaries are respected. At the same time, you are not cutting across. But in terms of perspectives are never going to be the same. So people are always going to have a different way of seeing things. You need to be very mindful of what you're listening to and what you allow to stay with you. That's a choice. You may not stop what is coming in, but you certainly have a power to determine what stays in. That's what I say on that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really good. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. I have got another question, and this is delving maybe a little bit more into the psychology side of things.
Okay.
So I have had instances where I've spoken to people, and whilst I haven't challenged it because it wasn't my place to,
Yeah.
you can tell that the reason why this person is just going and not resting is because they're afraid of actually breaking down
Right.
and facing what's underneath.
Yeah, so it's
that
like
busyness.
a mask. Yes.
Yeah. How? First of all, what do you have to say to that, and how would you speak to somebody like that if you had to advise them or share a word with them?
I think behavior patterns are influenced. They're always influenced by something. The behavior, the way people behave, is driven by something else that's happening. If somebody has an unhealthy approach towards rest, it's worth having a conversation with them and just ask. You could just ask a simple question: why do you find it hard to rest? And not everybody who keeps going really is struggling with something. So I think it's really important we don't assume. That's where
true.
I'm getting at.
That's true.
Yes, let's try not to assume because we see a certain pattern of behavior. For example, now, because of my background in mental health, I don't go about diagnosing people, or no matter how I've interacted with I've supported several, loads of vulnerable adults. I don't go about, or children, I don't go about, diagnosing, labeling because I saw a behavior. I think the first thing would be to ask a question. Why do you find it hard doing this? And also, you need to be the person needs to give you permission to ask that question. Therefore, I don't just see anybody in my church community because they're always so busy. I feel I've earned the right, because we sit in the same building, to go and ask them questions about their personal lives. You first of all need to have a relationship with someone to be able to invade their privacy in that way. You see, sometimes we often also just make people shut down or carry a sense of guilt because you have come to a conclusion without getting to know them or know why this is an issue for them. There may be a clinical reason why some people can't stop. They may be on medication, or they may require signposting to see a GP. Yeah. So for me, it's very important that we don't assume. We get to develop a relationship first with people before we start to dig deep into their lives. Yeah.
That is profound. So first of all, let's not assume because we've noticed that somebody can't stop. But what about in a scenario where, say for example, this person has said to you that, they're afraid of actually stopping, or they're worried about what's going to happen when they stop or when they rest.
Yeah.
And how would you approach that conversation with them?
Yeah, I think at that point, somebody is expressing something to you, isn't it? They're telling you some of the challenges or difficulties they're going through. If they're comfortable to talk further, in it, that conversation, it's exploration. You would support, if you're in a place and able to do that, you should explore that a little bit. And also, it's about understanding your remit. Somebody may disclose something to you and you tell them, you know what, I'm not the best person for this. Ask their permission if they'd be happy for you to share this with someone that you feel is equipped. Or you can, at least the primary care is there, which is the GP, the starting point. You can refer them, like, please, can you talk? You need to talk to your GP, because it's not a human default position not to sleep or not to rest. All humans arrive at a point where they should be resting. But then there are clinical explanations why this can be difficult for someone to achieve. And therefore, we have these conversations then. Signpost to a GP, tell them to speak to someone that is professional, a therapist, yes, or speak to their pastor if they have a relationship with their pastor, or a leader. Yeah, at the very least, explore that a little bit. If they're happy to share with you, if they say they don't want to talk a bit more, other than the fact that they're telling you that they're struggling with sleep, signpost them to have a chat with their GP or seek professional help.
Okay.
I would say.
Okay. So I think that's there's that need to be able to strike a balance, isn't it, between don't be so quick to jump in and rescue people,
yes,
but also be open enough to have a conversation, and knowing where to draw the line. Okay, this is the extent of my expertise, of my experience.
Yes.
I know somebody else who is able to
take it further for you and support you. Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started talking about obviously not assuming that just because somebody has kept going that they are struggling with rest. So can someone be highly ambitious then and be deeply rested and be well rested at the same time?
I think that's achievable because, again, it is their definition of rest, isn't it? Again, it's what their definition of rest is. So ambition is about its pursuit, isn't it? The desire to want to achieve something. You know, you're hardworking, you're driven, you know, and most people who are ambitious that I know are planners. What works for them really well, that these are people who know how to plan, and they're very focused. Ambitious people are focused people. They have goals, and I mean, I would describe myself sometimes. There was a time in my life where I was highly ambitious, you know, because I had to get to where I thought God wanted me to get to. And I'm still a work in progress. So do I rest? Yes, I do. I do rest. So I would say ambitious people can be well rested.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. But one thing that I've also noticed is that people who are highly ambitious and, like you said, focused, they tend to, the energy expenditure is very streamlined.
Yes.
So they spend their energy on specific things.
Yes.
They're not available to everyone and to everything.
Yes. They're very goal driven. This is my specific goal, target driven. It's task focus, yes.
And that helps, doesn't it, to even conserve energy.
Compartmentalization, they compartmentalize.
And it helps to maximize the capacity that you have in terms of like physical strength and ability to keep going. So that's good. Yeah, so you can be highly ambitious and be rested. That idea that you have to be sleeping 3 hours a day to be a CEO, I think it's been debunked. But anyway. So the next question that I think I got is two-faceted, if I can say that. So I think, where do you think people, especially young adults, learn that being busy equals being valuable? And how do you think that affects their sense of self-worth?
Yes. Again, if you are measuring being busy with being valuable, somebody's writing that script for you. Is that your reality? Do you feel like because you're busy, people value you more? Because these are your experiences. It's not something that I can explain. So if I was to ask you, Ola, that, do you feel like in your life, because you're very busy, do you feel like people value you? Now, that answer for me, that's a very personal question, isn't it? For me, the answer is no. But I don't know if that's what you perceived. You see, in your experience, that because you are, again, if somebody's grown up as a child and they've told them several times that they don't appreciate them unless they have the best results, unless they scored very well, those kind of people will associate doing with being valued, because the only time they were appreciated is when they were doing.
So it's like performance.
Yes, that's
based.
correct. Yes. So it depends, the way that it depends the way you're raised. It depends the culture in which you have been brought up, because these things then affect the way that we perceive things. Certainly, I wasn't brought up in that way. There's no culture that has led me to think that value is attached to me being busy, you see. And also, even if that is what you've been told, you've been brought up to think that you have to keep doing for people to like you. Those are bottom lines that need rewriting. You need support to break some of those belief systems, because your sense of self-worth starts from inside. It's what you place on yourself. Now, is it affected by what people say? And that's what we call low self-esteem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, or low self-confidence, you see. And those are things that you need support to rewrite, because low self-esteem or low self-confidence, those are belief systems that have been impacted in people because of what people have said to them or some of the experiences they've had.
Yeah, I think I agree about how the family expectation and the culture that you grow up in can inform what you perceive as valuable. So when we attach productivity or performance to being valuable, I grew up in that culture. If my mom is watching this, I apologize in advance, I'm ratting you out. But I grew up at a time where if you came second in class, that's a really good position to be in, like overall second best. My mom will be like, so the person that came first, do they have two heads?
Exactly. That's the first thing that comes out, isn't it? That's the first thing, instead of well done for what you've done. I mean, my mom was a widow from when I was about 9 years old, very young. And all I ever saw was a woman who worked hard. And therefore, is hard work part of my intrinsic character? Yes, it is, because that's what I saw. And I saw results from that. There is evidence from that. Now, like I said, as I got much older, I started to rewrite some of this for myself, because that's her story. It's not my story. That's my mom's story, you see. I'm not a widow, I have support. So it's separating these things. What informed your life as a child, you have to reevaluate. Are some of those things still relevant to me as an adult?
Yeah, that is absolutely, that is so true.
Yeah.
And I think a portion of that has still lived with me.
Yeah.
It's taken, and I would say that I'm still on that journey of learning.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, you almost have to be productive in one way or another.
Yes.
In order for people to see value in you.
Yeah.
And I'm very careful in saying this, but I do feel like sometimes the church can play a role in that as well. So, for example, you're in a department, and whilst you want to be committed in that department, when it comes to a time where you have to take time out to rest or to recover and things like that, sometimes I feel like it's hard for people to grasp the idea that you can't always be available to serve in this department. It's not because you don't love God anymore. It's not because you're not committed in your relationship with God. It's not because you don't want to be a part of the team. You just need that time out. And so I do sometimes feel like it is frowned upon when you say, I'm not available for that. I'm not.
Can I just correct this? Sometimes when you say the church, I would disagree.
Okay.
Because who did you interact with? Is it one person you spoke to, or you stood and the whole church said that?
That's a good question.
So sometimes we need to separate. Often at times I always hear in the church, and I was like, is it though? Is your interaction with a few people, maybe 5 people in a community, in a church that has 300 people, is that a representation? Maybe you didn't even talk to, the core leaders. And so it's also very important for us to separate. Is it this person I'm talking to? So if I was talking to Ole, I would zero it down to you. Is this your take about it? You see, again, these are the unconscious biases we have, and you hear a lot of things that people are building on the church is preaching that the church, but is it actually the church? Or was it just that one pastor who had that perspective? Or was it just that one leader who had that perspective? So it's really important that we separate when we talk about this. Now, I think it's very important for us to also know that efficiency is a good quality to have.
That's true.
Yes, the drive to want to be efficient and effective. It's very good. It's just for you to know, if sufficient people are able to know when to say, sorry, I've exceeded my quota, we wouldn't fall into so many difficulties where there is a lot of blaming. I think people need to develop themselves and gain more confidence in the area of owning their rest and not allowing other people to define when they need to rest.
Yeah.
They need to own their rest. Yeah.
And don't fall into, I don't think the people who do it realize that sometimes that's what they're doing.
That's what we talk about demand, isn't it?
Yeah.
People can keep demanding.
Don't fall into that guilt tripping.
Yes.
Well, I can do it. Why can't you do it when I was your age? When I was in your class.
Yes.
Do it back in
and
the
those
day
are
in my
the
time.
demands that society, people around you, there is always a demand. It is you owning your rest. Yeah.
Okay. And just one final question that I wanted to ask before as we begin to
conclude.
So what would change if we believe that rest was an act of trust? First of all, do you think that rest is an act of trust? And what do you think would change if we believe that rest is an act of trust?
I don't know. Can you define, when you talk about an act of trust, what do you mean?
So, for example, earlier on, we started talking about why people struggle to rest, and there was the fear of missing opportunities, fear of stopping, and things like that. But if we trust that God is working, even whilst we're resting, and if we trust that opportunities won't just disappear, just because we took a break, and if we trust that our value is not, like we've just discussed, is not in constant giving out, if we believe that, that this is the trust. So what do you think would change?
Our attitude towards rest will definitely change.
Okay.
The stereotypes around rest will change. There will be a mental shift in the way that we perceive and interpret rest. We'll be able to be happy with people who are taking rest, instead of people being perceived as someone is frowning at them taking a break and taking a rest. So again, I was just wanting you to put a bit more context when you talk about trust. I thought you were talking about trust in God, but I wanted you to clarify. Yes, if we trust that God is the one that orders our steps, if we trust that God has already predestined whatever we are to be, God has already, this is already a worked out plan. God is just releasing it to us in phases. So if you trust that He's in control, although He's giving you a permissive will, He has the final say. You will definitely be more agreeable or inclined to rest and take a break.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
You're
that.
welcome.
I think for me, this has been an episode of just reflecting.
Yes.
And I wanted to invite you, if you're watching this, to just reflect on just a few questions. And it's just, when was the last time you rested without actually feeling guilty? Is there a chance? Is there a chance that, like we've talked about, you're afraid that something would happen if you slowed down? And maybe it's time to start asking those questions and exploring those beliefs and start to pick at those belief systems. And if you're being honest, the pace that you're currently going at, is that sustainable for you? Or is it time to pause or, slow down and recuperate before you carry on? Again, I hope that this episode has been a blessing to you. This has been the Determined Voices podcast. Again, as always, if you've got a question, put it down. If anything stood out to you, please leave a comment. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the page and you haven't followed us yet, please make sure to do that. And we will see you in our next episode. God bless you.